family will build up humanity, and then we can all walk in victory. First things first, before things get worse, walk in the spirit before you go near it. First things first, don't obey your flesh, try to do what is best. So you're building up your inner self, brushing up the outer shell, oh yes, walking yes, maturity. Got to know what dwells in you is what will see you through, and then you will behold your destiny. First things first, before things get worse, walk in the spirit before you go near it. First things first, don't obey your flesh, try to do what is best. And this has been the challenge for many parents post-colonial slavery days, that we have had a unique way of raising our family before, and what is it today? So today we have a special guest coming on today, and her name is Kerry Wilson. We're going to just try to invite her on. Let's see if we can get Kerry. Oh, Kerry Wilson from Surf. So let's get her on here. We're having a lot of these. Okay, I got the invite through. Okay, and while we wait for Kerry to join, I'm going to start to just share a little bit about Kerry. With over a decade of experience with both public and the private sector, a registered child youth care worker and founder of SURF, an organization centered around the cognitive and behavioral strategies for young people. A former member and advocate of and mentor with the Jane and Finch community, mother of four, and managing director of SURF, Kerry has harnessed the wisdom and the insight focused on client-centered and holistic approach to self-care. Kerry has used her knowledge base and community reach to ensure that her clients achieve their personal and professional goals. Kerry has identified a niche that was continuing to be overlooked, that of culturally sensitive and informal therapy. Since 2016, SURF has been helping clients establish a roadmap towards positive self-care, personal evolution, societal regeneration to develop interaction and interpersonal success, and with their families. Known for her compassionate air and understanding tone and humanistic approach, Kerry's SURF consultation has been successful and dedicated to creating in lives of the youth of family partnerships of care. And we would just like to welcome Kerry. We're going to try to get you on here again on the air. I did get an invite. Let's try one more time. There we go. I see you. And there's no pause this time. And thank you for those that have tuned in so far. And as you know, as I always say, get your pen and paper. Because that you do need. I'm all digital, but I think it's harder to be digital. It's more clear when you get it, actually write it down. It's been quite sticky getting on for myself, but I do see you. So the invite is there. Okay, it's saying that she's unable to join. Let's try again. So yeah, so today we're going to be, it's more of a sequel of families. And last week we looked at, we spoke with Ripea, and we talked about the man, the woman, the child, the dynamics before even the child comes into play. Here today we're going to be speaking with Kerry, where she has another perspective of working with youth and families and already seeing the dysfunction and having to generate and create solutions for families, for individuals. So I look forward to getting her on the air. Let's try one more time. Okay, let's try again. Oh, it's still saying that she's there. Let's see. Unable to join the live. Hmm. Do we try again? Do we relog them out? On Shayna, actually, you're on the air there. Would you be able to tell me what we should relog on? I'm wondering, this is 3 attempts. And I do see her, but she keeps on getting bumped out. Let's see. Okay. Okay, and those of you that are tuning in, we are trying to just have Kerry Wilson join us. She's a behavioral consultant and has a lot of passion surrounding youth and families. And today we're going to talk about what it takes to move our families from dysfunction to functioning, creating an environment that is healing for those that are around us every day. It's still saying she's unable to join. Okay, the woman of the hour. I may have to reconvene. I'm gonna have to log on, log back, maybe. Oh, wait. Here we go. Yes. Let's do this.
Oh, let me switch it. Let me switch it over. Here I am.
Hey, welcome, Sherry. Did I carry me, Wilson?
Thank you. No, I was trying to log on, but it was letting me.
It's literally for me coming in. It was like bouncing me out, and we
Is
thought
it
initially,
echoing?
it was. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Am I echoing or are you echoing?
Oh, I'm not getting an echo from you. Do you hear an echo on your
Yeah.
end?
Hello, hello,
Oh,
hello? Okay, no, it's
uh,
gone.
okay. Woo! It's like, what more drama can they give us? We want to talk about today with all the youth and families,
I
and
decided to wear my earrings for International Women's Day. Have my head wrapped.
there you go. And I have a little woman in my shirt.
Love it, love it. I love your headband, Kira. I love it.
Yes. Oh, that is a Hilton house.
I love it.
Okay, fantastic. And then, so I did just read your bio, even though we had a little interruption in between.
Okay.
Um, with the like, logging in, delay, I should say, not really interruption. So I did get to read your bio, but for our listeners and viewers, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, what led you to becoming a behavioral coach, a youth leader? If you could just tell us a little bit about that journey and about your organization, sir.
Hey, well, a little bit about me, myself, is I am a single mother of 4 boys. So 4 young kings between the ages of 29 to 13, which was my last set of boys are twins. So yeah, my hands full of raising them. And I have always enjoyed working with children ever since I was young. Just children just naturally gravitated to me. I just naturally gravitated to children. So when I was looking for something to do, you know, the pipeline is school, high school, and then push you into college or university, and you have to figure it out. Because I wasn't good at math. I looked at all the things that didn't need math, all the college courses that didn't need math, and that was child and youth worker was one of them, and that's where I went from there, and I just ended up loving it, enjoying the course immensely, and just continuing on with this journey, and that led me into being a mom and being able to apply these new skills that I've learned as being a child and youth worker to my life and to my parenting skills, as well as to now developing into surf, where surf came from a need. Stop, evaluate, reassess, and follow through is what it means. Follow through with your life is what it means. And it came from a need because I had been working in this environment with children and youth for over 10 years at this one agency. And for whatever reason, they decided they didn't want me there anymore, for the one person that came in and decided they didn't like me. And I was out of a job, going through dealing with one of my twins having medical issues and trying to figure out all that. So all that was happening at the same time. And then finally, after we figured out what was going on, he had a disability. He was diagnosed with a disability. I had to rethink, I'm not going to now go get a job, go find a job now to pay for somebody else to come and take care of him while I'm at work. So I said, you know what, over the pandemic, I registered my business a long time ago, but over the pandemic, it really kept me focused and kept me like started. And I really put all my energies and efforts into it. I'm still doing it full time now, but he's older now. When he got diagnosed, he was like 7. So he's older now, so his needs are still changing, but I'm able, with the job that I found, I'm able to be there with him as well as do my business. So that's the reason. And the reason I want to just elaborate on the reasoning behind is because why I started my business is because I've been working with children and youth for so many years who have behavior issues, who have mental health issues. Majority of my experience is working in the Black community because I was in Jane and Finch for majority of my growing up and as well as working. So working and seeing, Black families struggling with mental health, struggling with behavior management, struggling with relationship building, and just having difficulties, I said, you know what, let me utilize my skills that I've learned over the years, not only by my profession, but also by my lived experience and bring it to our community. So this is why my niche is Black immigrant Caribbean families. But I work with all aspects of children. But that's my niche, is working with our people.
Yeah.
So by you, for you is what I like to say. And it comes from a holistic approach of not just cookie cutter. I don't give you any kind of cookie cutter parenting advice. I really am individualized, and I look from a holistic cultural lens. So I look from the spiritual, I look from the behavioral, I look from the learned and unlearned behavior, I look from the generational curses, I look from all aspects of it, and I try my best to come up with an individualized plan of care that's going to help tackle those issues that you guys are struggling, that the families are struggling with. And I go about helping you walk from A to B to C and aftercare as well.
I appreciate your passion. I can feel the passion. That is like just totally thorough. And I mean, it's like even when you look at even this whole spiritual aspect of it, in the scientific world, that might be an archetype, right? Could be examined as an archetype, if you to be able to express that, it has to be examined from a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
There's no good mental health if you don't got good spiritual health. That's it,
It's from our culture. You have to look at it like Black people this is what we've been raised in. We've been raised in culture. We've been raised in culture. We've been raised in, religion. So you can't tackle one side without tackling, to me, you can't tackle one side without tackling the whole. So.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it's very. I'm appreciative that you've taken upon to just examine this niche, not from, and I mean work with the niche of our community, not from a point of pity, but a point of passion, a point of seeing that it has specific needs to be examined and embraced. What are the varying behaviors that you've encountered, from the smallest to the most overt conduct, working with Caribbean families? Because as you know, we're not the traditional family after post-colonial slavery. We heard it from Rapia last week, what we were before slavery, how the order needs to be put in place. And some people have still adapted it, but even she herself had to adapt that lifestyle, a certain way to govern her family. What are some of the conducts that you have seen in behaviors in our community?
Definitely opposition to defiant disorder. And that's something that's just not wanting to listen to rules, not wanting to follow directions, tantruming, having these major meltdowns, detachment, parents, and mostly parent, like, no, I don't want to say mostly because it trickles down, like it's a co-parent, what's the word? So it's both parent and child can suffer from this as attachment. So I see more tantruming, more not being able to really express their feelings and treat the children like they are a being and not a robot. So that is for our society, and also cultural religious things as well. We also want to base our parenting off of religion and being very strict and not, having those kind of boundaries where we're able to accept that, children have a voice. They're not just to be seen and not heard. We can't stay in that mindset of our parents and our parents before that. They are human beings and they're little beings growing up and they're watching it. So it's always the nature versus nurture kind of aspect of it. So I see, and now to the extreme of, the LGB and also the, suicidal ideation, that is also happening in our community a lot more. Cutting. When I started in, oh, it's been over 20 years, I started being a CYW. When we heard cutting, it was predominantly, yeah, self-harm and cutting was predominantly a white behavior. And I'm not, other people who watch this or other, professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, they can come for me. But definitely that is something that I saw a lot in my lived experience. It was more white Caucasians who were doing that. Now, in my lived experience, it is now more relevant in our community. So it's happening. I don't know if parents are aware of it because we wouldn't even know what to look for because it's something that it's foreign to us as into cutting and self-harming and harming yourself and suicidal ideation, wanting to hurt yourself. Not necessarily ideation means not just having the ideas like I want to hurt myself, I don't want to be here. Not having a plan is suicide. So having a plan, a set plan, like tomorrow at such and such a time, I'm just going to put, because I have to clean my nose, but I'm going to keep talking. At my nose is running. My nose is running. At so having like a set plan of this time and day, that is suicide. I'm going to commit suicide. Or I'm going to sorry, I don't want to use that word because I know Instagram will probably delete it or mute it, but unhurt yourself or unalive yourself is what they use on this term so that Instagram and YouTube doesn't ban them. But yeah, so for that, I'm seeing a lot more. I'm seeing a lot more of gender identity issues. That's a lot of going on in our society where, they might be struggling with their identity, their gender identity, and don't want to come out to their parents, don't want to, who don't know who to talk to because they come from a very culturally and religious background, so they're very afraid to talk. So all those things are we're getting where kids are coming to like my day job saying, you can't tell my parents that I'm reaching out for help. How do you help the family? How do I help this child in an overall holistic when I can't get the parent involved? So, and community agencies are doing this. They're allowing children to come and receive services without informing the parents, especially in the LGBTQ community, because they know how it could lead to other issues as well. To me, as a parent and also as a worker, I would not go with that approach. In my own business, I would not go to that approach. Okay, what I would do in those sort of situations is I would take the child, because I'm never going to leave a child out of services and out of care, but working with the child to get the parent involved. So how can I work with you to get you into this family, to be able to have a sit down with your family to express what is going on with you? Because you cannot work with the child and get any sort of result if the family is not involved, especially if they live with the family. So I see that a lot, and it's sad, and that's why I feel my business is needed, as well as Black people really needing to utilize my services, as well as services that are culturally sensitive and that are culturally geared to supporting them.
Okay, beautiful. You mentioned earlier, that's typical saying of a child is to be seen but not heard. And I know it's critical. I could look. I mean, for me, I wanted to go into child psychology, right? So I did a lot of, reading on that in terms of like, in school. And I was a very young mom, and I learned a lot about parenting, right? And then I could look at other parents that really need to take a class or two, right? And I wanted, like, if you could just share with us today, like, the stages of development in a child, development of a child's development, their transitional years, and what do they need? What do children deserve? Like, I mean, because I know we have to look at the family as a whole. You know what I mean? Work with both family and the parents and the children. But what do children deserve? Because I've looked at, I mean, we have a lot of brokenness in our community by design, and it sucks to really see that a lot of things are panning out that we hoped
Yeah.
would not come to this.
Yeah.
And um, what is it that a child deserves and needs? What do children deserve and need?
Love. They need to be loved. They need to be listened to. They need to be respected, and they need to be heard. It's very simple. A child is not, it's just, what would you want as a child? Put yourself back into your childhood. And what are the things that from your childhood that you did not like, you wanted for your little self? For Kerry when Kerry was 6, or Kerry when Kerry was 7, what did I want? And those things that you wanted for yourself that you didn't get for whatever reason, your parent wasn't able to give that to you because of their generational curses, their generational uh, are things that were happening to them. What do you want from that? So it literally is very simple, but it's also very wide. It's not as simple as it sounds, but definitely for me, in knowing and working, it's once you come from a place of love and your intention is to heal yourself and learn and do better and parent as best as you can, you are, I would say 90% of the time, you're going to do your best. You're going to try your best. So your child is going to receive the best from you. So I want to be clear, though, I am not a psychologist and I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not a counselor. I am a child and youth worker. And what that means is I am without having the BA behind me, I do a lot similar to what a social worker does, what a psychiatrist does, what a psychologist does, but I don't have the credentials behind it. So that is how the definition is, the separation. So I'm not able to do formal counseling. I'm able to do informal, but I'm not able to do formal. And what I do is I've been taught on the child and youth work. So the behavior of child and youth, the cognitive development. So all those areas I've been trained in, and also working with it 20 plus years and raising 4 boys. So I just want to be clear that I'm not a psychiatrist, not a
Yeah.
psychologist, not a
Now,
counselor.
now the stages of like development, like during the the early years.
Yeah.
I want to almost look at that because there's a lot of realities there. I've worked at World Vision in the past, and the year that I was working at World Vision was the year that Canada was added as children. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And a lot of, and especially now that I'm a fashion designer confirmer, there's a lot of families that are faced with food issues, hunger, just economics. I mean, just even having children all have to have a phone, a cell phone now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are different dynamics of needs. I know that like when I've raised 3 children as kids, but 3 children.
They're still your kids.
Kids goats, if you say that in the community, they say kitty. They look at you, they think it is a goat. Like 3 children, and in learning and in raising them, yesterday there was things. I mean, like from the financial aspect, being a young child. that literally could impact their social
Yeah.
life in real world, and literally throw things off, um and it takes a village to raise a child, right? um I want to look at the fact that we have, for those that send their kids to school, right? I mentioned that in some of the notes that I sent you. They send their children to school 8 hours of the day, they're away. The truth is, for 8 hours, that's another village,
Yeah.
another culture in most cases, especially for us that live in Ontario. We're very diverse.
Yeah.
Nobody speaks English in Ontario. As far as
Just,
I'm
just English at least.
right? Or nobody speaks such English, But needless to say, we are dealing with, our children. The village is actually the teachers. It's the principals. It's the students.
Yeah.
The guide each other. And of course the youth workers that come on site too. you know.
Not all of us
Um,
is good, though. Not all of us is good.
this is it. My son is actually a youth worker, so
I love to hear when it's black males being youth workers. I love it. We
youth
need to
worker.
connect.
So, how can parents maximize the value? They only have 4 hours, really. This isn't a perfect world to I'm talking like drive home,
Yeah.
prep meal, go through homework, um, they got to eat, and then wash up, right?
Yeah.
They have 4 hours to make that a good time. And when you walk through that door, it's not always that case. Maybe the house is a mess. And this could be a factor of impacting their environment. What can parents do to maximize the value with their children?
I think be mindful that like I said, children are not just children. They have the same emotions, same feelings as we do. So if we come home from a stressful day at work or a stressful day of being in society, they also have those same stressors as well. They may be different because it's a 7-year-old stress compared to a 40-something-year-old stress, but doesn't mean that they don't have stressors. Doesn't mean that we don't have to be mindful as to where they're at the time in their life. So checking in and always trying to see, well, how are you? And really listening, not just saying it for the sake of saying it, but listening to what the answers are and really taking in social cues as well as nonverbal cues as well as verbal cues, because children aren't able, and a lot of adults too, are not able to label their emotions. There's a lot of undeveloped emotional intelligence out there in adults. So if the adults aren't, then the children are definitely not going to be. So we have to start young. And I always say, whatever you think is cute at 2 becomes a problem at 10. So nip it in the bud at 2 instead of waiting till 10 to try to be reactive. So I'm always about being proactive instead of reactive parenting. So I'm always about looking at understanding that our children are different and we need to parent them different. We need to wear different hats when we're dealing with them. And so that kids don't come off of thinking you have a favorite child or you are the favorite or you're not the liked or you're the black sheep. Like, I don't want to even hear those terms as we go into the next generation. We should never be hearing that someone feels that they're the black sheep or they feel that you're the favorite. You know what I mean? Because if we would negate those feelings, if we are able to understand that our children are different and we need to parent them differently. They are not the same and they're not going to be listened to or they're not going to be received the information that you want them to learn at the same time. The other thing is also not everything needs to be a lesson. You have to allow them to have natural consequences to their actions and give them the tools to help them to cope with those. So instead of like, oh, I saw a situation, and I think it was Nat. Is she on here? It was her situation, and she was talking about like her child came home and was telling her he was gambling money or something at school, and she had to give him the lesson. And I kind of put on there, I'm putting on my behavior management hat. I'm not putting on the culturally mom hat. And
Mhm.
I'm giving you the advice of allowing the kids to walk through that.
Mhm.
Instead of saying to them, you shouldn't be gambling, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't, let them go through it. So what happened with that? Like what was going on there? Like how did it become to the fact that now you owe this child money? So what's happening there? So let them go through the steps on their own, being able to
Mhm.
verbally say it, and then you sort of help them, guide them, not tell them what to do, not tell them how to handle the situation, because if you give them that, then they don't have anything to pull out for them to have. If anything happens the same or even similar, they don't have any tools
No.
because they're just listening. They're just what mom told me to do. And mom didn't tell me to do what in the situation. He only told me what to do in that situation. So that is another thing that I think that we can do to sort of help, advance thinking, processing, children because again, we are raising them for a very small period of time before they are adults and need to live in adult world. Very
Yeah.
short period of time before they're very restricted to our babies and our homes and our ways and only our ways till they have to go out there and live in society. So we have to remember we are preparing children to become productive, healthy, mentally safe, emotionally available adults. That's what we're preparing. So if we have those things in mind, we won't let a lot of things that we used to let slide because I was a teenage mom. My mom was a young mom as well, and we
Mhm.
let a lot of things slide because we didn't have the tools to relearn them or to teach them better ways. So that's what I'm here and that's what I do. So I come in and I do not say this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong. But what I do say is what's working for you? And what is it?
Mhm.
Why is it working? Why is it not working? All right, let's revamp that. Let's do this way. And we all have those skills. We just need some help. Like we just need some help with it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That I appreciate that. We're it's as you know, as we said, it takes a village to raise that child, and then um, the ways that we can, I guess, maximize our involvement is what you're expressing, like with them, is like because we're not really with them. They're away from us for 8 hours, like literally, in most cases, unless you're
Yeah.
homeschooling. Um, so what you're saying is like again, I see the balance between knowing your child, as somebody was saying here, acknowledge that the child is, or they repeated what you wrote, but know the child. So when you know when something is off with their energy, you have to like you're knowing the child, you're having a conversation with them,
Yeah.
not rather because a lot of Black parents in particular, sometimes the school's always calling you. It's quite often. Like it don't
Yeah.
matter for whether the school is always calling you. And I don't know if this is there to create a riff in the family dynamics. I've seen such extreme matters in the schools where I mean in the Peel region they've in but 4 years ago they arrested, handcuffed
Yeah.
and shackled
A
a
baby. Yeah.
little girl. And whether or not that she comes from a dysfunction family or not, um, it does matter. It actually
Yeah.
does matter. It matters if she had the love, because they're on a battlefield. I don't know when they go to school. Kids of color, it's not. Well, here in Canada,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really not
And I
the
hear
best
it,
place.
and I just heard another article about a child, like I think it was a 9-year-old who got locked or 6-year-old actually, got locked in a closet. Is that behavior management? Is that how? And I get clients because I also work with the school, like if you're having difficulties with the school board, I also have that as one of my services as well because I'm very, very versed in working with TDSB, working with Peel because of my lived experience as well as my work experience. So I had a parent who contacted me and her 6-year-old were having all these problems at school. And I literally said to her, like, it's not about your child. It literally isn't. It's about the adults that are there and how they deal with your child. And you have to advocate for your child even harder in, and especially if you are in a predominantly white school, or, you know, doesn't have a lot of Black teachers, which we know that is very scarce today, or culturally sensitive teachers, or, you know what I mean? If you don't have that in your school, then it's very difficult for Black boys to be looked at as to not being called angry, not being called problem, not thinking that they need an IEP and they have behavioral issues, but understanding that they're 6 years old, they're just adjusting, learning to be in a school environment, but you also have to learn that child. You have to learn the temperament. You have to learn what they like, what they dislike. How do I approach them? How do I not approach them? All those things that teachers, unfortunately, are not trained to know. Us as CYWs, that's our
Training.
training.
I
No,
find that teachers have spent a lot of money on training. I don't know.
not
I'm
not
used to the
not in the fact of what they need to manage classroom behavior. They're taught in programming, they're taught in, you know, being able to implement their curriculum and stuff like that, but in managing children behaviors, they're not taught. That is something that we are taught as CYWs. That is something that, you know, a psychologist is taught, but not a teacher per se. So that is a lot of the reasons and the culturally sensitive lens as well. That is not taught. As much as they want to say equities in the schools now, and we're focusing on diversity and equity, it is still a matter of having it written on paper, but actually being able to receive it, look at your internal biases, look at yourself. What am I contributing to this? What are my biases? And that's individual work. Or, you know what I mean? That's a system that has to be revamped. And that is not happening. So as much as we want to think that, we want to be, you know, optimistic, I think you as a parent have to be your first teacher, has to be your child's first teacher, and your
Absolutely.
loudest teacher, and your biggest teacher.
Yes, yes.
And then you
It
don't
is our
worry. Then you don't worry so much about the 6 hours that they're at school,
responsibility.
because you know that you've instilled as much as you possibly can for them to do their best there, and they're not going to reprogram. You don't have to reprogram them every time they come back through the door. So
It seems that way. You know, it seems that way that you have to reprogram them. I mean, there's all kinds of families when we're looking at families where there's multiple generations that we're dealing with in the family. I know that we're going to have to expand on this topic here because I really want to get into, you touched a little bit earlier on the importance of working with the entire family
yeah,
versus it's just critical, especially if you have a child that does have a disability or mental illness. One of the key things is they need that support.
yeah,
I find that it's something that we culturally say, you know, I'm not good in my head, you know, just allow him, you know, I'm not good in my head, and I don't really want to deal with the wellness or their thin skins or you know something not wrong with that, right, with that child, you know,
yeah,
certain things. In fact, we're identifying it, but we're not engaging with it in the most holistical way for the child to evolve,
yeah,
right? Sometimes it's a burden, you know. I know when I raised my children, who I was mentioning earlier, actually, when I raised my children with a lot of guilt myself.
a lot of what?
Because
Sorry, a lot of what?
I felt a lot of guilt
Oh,
about,
guilt.
you know, because I was such a young mom and I had this guilt. So sometimes you didn't want to, you might overcompensate. My kids did not miss a school trip. If they're going to Montreal, they're going to Montreal. If they're going to Winsky, like they, you know, and I did whatever it took so that they can fit in. And if they didn't behave, it wasn't even you know, it might be a threat. You could go, oh, you know, you're not going to be able to go to that trip if you don't behave this way. But I think you mentioned earlier, there was a lot of tools that I didn't know,
Yeah,
even though I did do a lot of parenting classes,
yeah,
helped a lot. Telling you it's worth it to do the parenting class, especially if you don't have nothing to look to
yeah,
as an example
yes.
how to discipline children. right? I remember had a spoon, and I was told, like, no, no, a spoon is a weapon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, and it wasn't even about using the spoon. It was even threatening to
I'm
use the
thinking,
spoon
yeah, you scared.
because I'm going to do better than the other generation, you know. But
Yeah.
I've seen where you have dynamics of, you know, parents have no finance. Our parents have some, you know, strong finances. Parents have, some children have two-parented homes. Some parents are lone. Some children have lone-parented homes. I've seen dynamics where um, people, I don't want to mention anything, but where you've raised, what is the difference between, why, okay, when we look, going back to the post-colonial, right? What is the difference? What did those families do where they've raised beautiful families and families that have raised dysfunctional families? I've seen in families where you have one sibling that raises their children the same way their mother did, and another sibling raises their children differently. You can see the difference. You can see the generational curses being broken. One hits their children, one doesn't hit their children. You can see the difference. What, I don't even know what the I'm trying to get the question out.
And I'm
Um,
going to tell you that's a very difficult, question to answer because every parent, everything is individualized. It's a really different because you can have child abuse, you can have in a two-parent home, you can have it in a affluent home, you could have it in poor, you know what I mean? So it's very difficult to answer that question to the T. But what I can say is if you do not try to overstand your children, difference in
mm,
children and how they parent, how you need to parent them differently, you can have a household of four children and one of them are not the greatest. And or three or all five of them are the greatest. Or one of them, you only have one and doesn't turn out the greatest. You know what I mean? So you can have those dynamics, but it's because you need to overstand your child and how they receive information, how they receive your love. What is their love language? And I talk about that for children, the five utilizing the love languages knowledge for children, because adults like to just look at it for themselves as adults, but you can always utilize it for children as well. So if you are trying to figure out what my husband or my boyfriend or my partner's love languages, do the same for your child. What is your child's love language? How did they receive your messages? And some kids, don't like yelling. Some kids need you to write things, need you to give them a touch. In order for them to receive your message, you have to hold their hand, or you have to touch their heart, or you have to physical touch, you know what I mean, in order for them to hear what your message is. So it's very, very, very hard to have to learn how to parent differently with each and every child that you do have. But once you make that agreement with yourself or with your partner to have children, you have to do those things. You have to relearn your childhood traumas. You have to heal that your childhood child so that you don't continue to keep passing on generation to generation the hurt child. And that is what we as adults and as Black people need to do is understand that, yes, slavery, our ancestral stuff is there. Our generational traumas are there. And we continue to be traumatized each and every day. We may not know it because we just go through it. Just like I was on another live last night and I said to them, I raised four boys and I raised twins, but like pretty much by myself with my mom's help a little bit and my other big boys' help, but still pretty much on my own. And it was only after I saw Kiki Palmer, who just had a baby, and she came on and she was thanking moms. Did you see that? It was such a sweet, like thanking moms and single moms, and it was only then that I really sort of registered as to, wow, it is an experience, eh? Like, how do we do it? You know what I mean?
how do we do
So it's
it?
totally understanding that we have to give ourselves grace. There is no handbook, even with all the things that are coming out, like the mindful parenting, the being the soft parenting, all those different things that are coming out. it is still needing to be learned. It is not something that you could just pick up, and it's not something to just take from one person. It's also you have to do your work internally, because you're not going to be mindful parenting if you are not mindful of your own. But 2 seconds you're cussing out Auntie Donna because Auntie Donna said something you don't like, but yet you're mindful parenting. Like your children are going to be like,
They
you are
want
two-sided. Yeah, they're watching you, and they're going to be like, oh, so you want to be mindful with me, but you can't be mindful with the other people. You can't be nice. You know what I mean? So all those things, you have to be nurture, nature versus nurture kind of thing. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit, but it is very difficult to.
like I couldn't even get the question out of my mouth
Yeah,
because it's like
I was trying
I
to
wanted to give
help you.
without exploiting anybody. My I can give you an example. But I mean, like, look at, I mean, we're going to have to go because we're about to wrap up, but I mean, get into the way how we can correct our children in love.
Yes.
Because the abuse, I've seen it, to me, it's been a little bit on the rise
Yeah.
in many ways, where you'll be at in the public and you'll hear how our community is related to their children, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's mind blowing. Is this a dog you're talking to? Is it like people talk back to their dogs? It just
Better than me,
honestly,
yeah.
it's just really sad. And I want us to be able to give some scenarios as to, how, like, just like examples of like, how can we approach it? Some illustrations, because there's a lot of examples, and I want listeners, even to put in some questions of how can we handle a situation, a scenario that you're in, um, with a child. I mean, I see abuse leading to criminals. In all honesty, I've seen parents who've abused their children,
Hmm.
and by the time that child is like 15, they're criminal. Straight
Yeah.
up. It's that easy, right? And you said earlier too, like earlier years, the things that we think is cute, nip it in the butt. Honestly, we're posting it all on Instagram and on social media, but some of it's just redunculous.
Yeah, totally. So it's what you, yeah, exactly those things, like being aware that your child is, they are not your property. You know what I mean? They're not you to live through your vicariously through them. They are their own beings. They're their own people. They have their own destiny and their own path, that we are here to guide them, but we are not here to push them into this is because I couldn't do it because I was a teen mom and I want you to go play basketball, or I want you to play tennis, or I want you, and I'm going to force you to continue down that path because that is what I wasn't able to do, or I wasn't able to get all of the Jordans and look this, like you said, make sure they go on every class trip. When I'm sure they were like, Mom, I don't want to go skiing, or Mom, I don't, but you were like, no, you're going because I didn't get to go and you are going to go. You know what I mean? So just being able to understand that they don't need to be a part of every single thing that we didn't get to do, or they don't need listening to them and receiving that. I don't want to do March break camp. I just want to stay home and not do anything and just enjoy. Why are they not allowed to do that? Why do we have to sign them up? Because it is not for them, it is for us.
Yeah.
And once we, if that's fine that you understand that, listen, I need my peace and you need to go to March break camp, but understand that you may get some pushback later on when they're like, I didn't want to do all of these things, Mom. You pushed me into these things. And when they're big, they don't want to do any of those things, or they don't follow through with any of those things. So for me, what I just say is listen to your child, respect
Yeah.
their wishes, come
Yes.
to a respectful compromise as to what is you feel that you would like for them, as well as what they would like for their lives. As little as 6 can tell you, I don't want to do this, Mom, or I do want to do this,
Yeah.
or why you don't want to do this. You can ask those questions, but you have to be, like I say, when people say to me, how am I doing? If you do not want to hear the real answer, don't ask me that question. Because for me, I'm going to tell you, you know?
Yeah.
So if you do not want to hear what your children have to say, don't ask them, you know? But that's not a great way of parenting, because in the long run, you will have resentful adults who don't want to have anything to do with you when they're older, who don't want you to be a part of their grandchildren's life. And it's just going to go from generation to generation. So learn from your child now. They are put into your life to help you mirror what you need to change and what you need to do better. So if you are not listening to that, and if you are not trying to address those, then you will continue it generation to generation.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
Okay. So we're gonna definitely carry on this conversation. We gotta do a sequel to get into some strategies, some surf strategies.
And definitely
If
questions, if you have questions,
yes,
send them in, put it under the
yes,
post, and we'll get to it at the next time.
yes. I'm actually looking to see. I'm looking through to see if there's any questions. For some reason, the little question bar is not available as
No,
usual.
I
But
don't think either.
comments or questions. I see some of your comments that I'm gonna read. I think I read that one earlier. They repeated what you said. Acknowledge a child and ask about their day, and
Yeah.
listen to the child's answers. Don't just ask for asking sake. It's funny that that was my, I would say, one of my key parenting roles is that we had a conversation, right, the whole day. We always knew what was going on, and actually dealing with teachers, they could. That's one thing they knew, is that we had a relationship.
Yeah. I always want to, there's one part of parenting that I think we are just disassociating from. And I think when we say that we want to be friends with our children, and we want to, I want to be my friend. My child is my bestie. I dress them just like me, and their little version of my clothes is a little version of them. Then we remember. Then, when the child is 13 and 12 and doesn't want to dress like the child, like the mother, or wants to dress like the mother, but at a 13-year-old body and a 6-year-old body is totally different. We have to remember, again, we only get them this short period of time where society is not their experience. So we have to be remembering and preparing them for society. And society doesn't look at our sweet little 6-year-old and 7-year-old body in belly skin and tight shorts the way that we look at our little 6-year-old in tights and a belly skin and think, you know what I mean? It's not the same. So you have to remember that the things that you may think is great, and my bestie, and I want to dress them, even boy children, where they're wearing the hip hop gear, and the Jordans, this $400 Jordans at 6 years old, where in 2 seconds they're going to grow out of it and they need another set of Jordans. That is, again, a mentality that you're instilling that is not going to be long term. I don't want to say good, but I don't want to say great. Great life lesson.
Those are some of the components I was thinking about when I was putting together the show. Was just I look at the entire, what is a functional family, and what is a dysfunctional family? What will cause dysfunction?
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Yeah.
So looking at raising entitled children, we don't think we are, especially as Canadians here, we don't realize how entitled we are. And they really are in many ways. It's not to say that everybody doesn't deserve the best. Of course they deserve the best, but what does that look like? How does that contribute to their good functionality? And as Joy put down here, are we raising adults? We are raising adults, not children. So we must treat them in the way of their growth and development. So we have to, so I really appreciate the work that you've been doing. It's very authentic. It's very passionate.
I said, Joy says not viable in most cases. What does that mean? What do you mean not viable in most cases? What's not viable?
What's there?
If you're still on, Joy, just give me a little bit of explanation, because everything is viable in what I think in society. It's just how we implement it. So for me, I can definitely be my child's friend, but my child needs to understand what that means for us. So the definition for what our friendship is different than what society's definition of a friend is. So they're not, and that is what we have to understand. If we are going to live in society but not of society, is what I instill is we have to make those definitions for ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to redefine what we want for our children, what we want for our families, what we want to partake in, and what we're not going to partake in. Doesn't matter if Susie and Johnny and does, but it's what we realize it. So if you are going to go off of the definition of what a friendship is in society, then yeah, being a friend to your child is because you are trying. Michelle Obama said it really well. If you're trying to please your friend, because as a friend you want to make sure your friend's happy, you always. But if that's what you're trying to do for your child, you're not going to be a good parent, because you can't always, as we know as adults, we can't always be happy. We can't always be, matching, getting our needs met, because society that we lived in, it doesn't happen that way. Life, it doesn't happen that way. So that is what I mean by everything in life is viable. We just have to create those definitions for ourselves and our families. I could go on.
Beautiful.
I could go on all night.
I appreciate your passion. I look forward. We're gonna either do it next Wednesday or the following Wednesday. I think we're gonna do.
Okay.
I might be taking a sabbatical for the following Wednesday, the next Wednesday coming, but
Yeah.
I look forward to carrying on this conversation. And before we go, for our listeners who probably still have questions, I want you guys to actually send some questions in things of concerns that you might be dealing with that we can actually address.
Yes.
That would be really good. You can send it to myself, Lady Sharon, so I could put together some questions and put it out there. A Roots Reggae Hub, and of course, Kerry Wilson, if you could let our listeners and viewers know more about where they could find more information.
You can definitely reach me on Instagram at Surf Your Life, SERFYOUR, your life. I'm trying to spell it.
Surf Your Life.
Surf Your Life on Instagram. You can definitely reach me. I have a website at www.surfyourlife.com. You can reach me on Facebook, which is Stop, Evaluate, Reassess, and Follow. And that's how you find me on Facebook. But if you see me on Instagram, you can always go to it and it'll tell you where you can reach me on other places. But I'm here. I am available. I have a free 30-minute consultation. If you want to ask me, if I am not the one to help you, I will definitely direct you to who I connect you with resources. I never leave you. Like you said, we are Surf Village and we need a village, and I'm part of your village, so utilize me.
Okay. Thank you. We look forward to talking to you next 2 weeks from now. And happy International Women's Day to all the women.
Too, Mama. You too. And definitely, I want you to give your son a big hug for me and say thank you for going into the field. You are so needed and you're so welcome, dear. And if there's anything that he wants to run past me or talk to me about, my DMs are open to him.
Okay, I'll send you where he's at. I'm family dynamic. I'll send you where he's at. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm glad that it's important for some men to get up and work, and honestly, I'm very proud of the work that he does. He's identified select mutism. As I said, you CYAs, like, you guys do a different component of the work. The teachers are there teaching. They do need it, but you guys have this compassion about the individual from a holistic perspective, which I absolutely appreciate the work that you do. So big up yourself, woman.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. And I can't wait for part 2.
Yes, likewise. Women's Day with Kerry Wilson from Surf. See you next Wellness Wednesday. One love. Roots Reggae.
Everybody.